Hello, I'm Jim Cathcart. I'm a professional speaker and author. I've written 18 books and done about 3,100 speeches around the world. And I'm going to be today with Dov Baron. And we're going to be talking about how to identify what really matters to you and transform the way you see the world in such a way that it makes everything you want to do a whole lot easier, a lot more natural, and a lot more likely to succeed. Stay tuned.
Congratulations! You are tuned into Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, the #1 podcast for Fortune 500 executives and those who are dedicated to creating a quantum leap in leadership. Your host, Dov Baron, is the founder of FullMontyLeadership.com. He's an executive mentor to leaders like you, a contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine, CEO World, and he's been featured on CNN, Fox, CBS, and many other notable sites. Dov Baron is an international business speaker who was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers to hire. Now, over to Dov Baron.
Welcome, dear friends, fans, and fellow aficionados of leadership excellence. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Tips, part of the Full Monty interview series. I'm your host, Dov Baron. I'm the founder of Full Monty Leadership, and I'm here to assist you tapping into your deep greatness so you can reach that next level of clarity, focus, purpose, and profit in your business, your life, and your leadership impact. Today, we're going to be taking an insider look at what's going on inside of you that's making you a great leader or in the way of you becoming a great leader. We'll find out. As you listen in, remember that you can also go and chat about the show with our guests, with other listeners about these episodes and about past episodes by going to Facebook. We now have a group in there, and you'll find it Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Podcast. Go to that group. Let's chat about what's going on. Let's chat about what you've learned here. Let's chat about what you're going to do with it. That's actually very important. If you're a new listener, new viewer to the show, thank you for joining us. Strap yourself in. We're about to go full Monty. Remember, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and anywhere that you get your podcasts. We also need your help in staying relevant. So please get yourself over to iTunes, rate, review, and subscribe to the show. And when you do, again, go to that Facebook page, the Dov Baron Leadership and Loyalty Podcast Show. Go to that page, tell us that you've rated, reviewed, and subscribed to the show, and maybe I'll give you a shout out right here live on the show. Remember, you can also catch us on traditional radio stations across the United States every Monday and Thursday, across various stations from Las Vegas to Philadelphia to Georgia to Colorado. We are all over. You can also check us out on Roku TV, where there's over 100,000 subscribers. And if you're a regular listener, I want to say a big thank you to you for making us the #1 podcast globally for Fortune 500 listeners with a potential reach of 2.5 to 4 million listeners for every single show. We're honored and grateful to Inc.com for making us the #1 podcast to listen to make you a better leader. You can also check us out on Google Home and Alexa. Simply say, play Dov Baron's podcast. So thank you for sharing the show with everyone you know. All right, let's strip it down and dive right in. As a leader, whether you're a CEO, someone in the C-suite, a sales leader, entrepreneurial leader, whatever it is, if you're a leader in any capacity, you've heard me say it 1,000 times. Leadership starts with self. If you aren't leading you, you're not really leading anybody else. But where do you start? Well, you're about to find out. Our guest on this episode is Jim Cathcart. Now, Jim Cathcart is arguably the most award-winning professional speaker on planet Earth. Now, he's not won as many awards on Mars, but on Earth, he's definitely the top guy. He's the past president of the National Speakers Association, Speaker Hall of Fame. He's the Sales and Marketing Hall of Fame, Golden Gavel Awards, the Cavett Award. He is author of 18 books, including international bestsellers. He's started as a government clerk and worked his way up. He's had more than 3,100 paid speaking gigs worldwide. He's in the top 1% of TEDx speakers. He's authored many bestsellers, as I said, including the Acorn Principle, Relationship Selling, and the Self Motivation Handbook. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the godfather of relationship selling, Mr. Jim Cathcart.
Wow, what an intro. Now, do I have to go full Monty? Do I? I wasn't.
Okay. Come on, show us how the big boys do it.
There you are. Great to be with you, Dov.
It's a real pleasure, mate. It's a real pleasure. Now, before there was Tony Robbins or even Dov Baron, there were people like Zig Ziggler and Dennis Waitley, and you've shared the stage with many of those greats.
Yeah, they were both, well, are in Dennis's case, but Zig and Dennis, both good friends for a long time, and I've done programs with them. Zig Ziggler and I, one time we were addressing an audience of 3,000 with Dr. Norman Vincent Peale.
Wow.
And oh man, I mean, that was something. And Dennis Waitley and I, we started out together as speakers back in the 1970s, late 70s.
That's amazing. I mean, in a previous conversation, you and I were talking about how I used to listen to Earl Nightingale on LP, which is really giving away the age bracket here. What does LP stand for?
Well, that's this thing. You know, I've had people say on a record, yeah, an LP. What? A long playing record. What's a record? Well, exactly. It's like a CD, but larger. You know?
And it's made of vinyl and it's this big.
Yeah.
You will know what it is if you're a DJ, but otherwise, if you're under 35, there's no way.
No clue.
So let's go back, because I talked about you starting out as a government clerk. I want to start there because, you know, the trajectory of your career is, to say the least, extraordinarily impressive.
Thank you.
But everybody starts somewhere, right? So walk us back to the beginning of where it all started.
Well, I grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas, and my dad was a telephone repairman. Mom was a housewife, took care of my invalid grandfather at home. My grandmother was living with us. And I was an ordinary student and not an athlete. So when I got out of school, high school, I didn't expect much. I enrolled in a state college that was accepting 98% of applicants, so I squeezed in. And I was there.
You were outstanding, clearly.
Absolutely, yeah, outstanding in my field. Exactly. After a couple of years there, I was struggling making grades, but succeeding at making parties. And so I dropped out of school and went to work in a warehouse and went to work in a factory for a weekend and said, nope, that's not for me. Got a job as a clerk at a bank. You know, went on through a number of things, tried selling mutual funds and life insurance. I got married in 1970. And my first job after that was mutual funds and life insurance while playing the guitar and singing at night in beer joints and clubs. And then I didn't do well at sales. And so I stopped doing that, took this government clerk job for $525 a month. My wife was working as a secretary. We had a new baby at home, no money in the bank, no college degree between us. No connections in the community. Her dad worked in a factory. So, you know, we just expected an ordinary life, figured we'd be nice people who would have a stereotypical lifestyle, you know, live to 65, retire, die at the age of our gene pool, you know.
Yeah.
And one day I was sitting there bored to tears because I was an assistant to a man who didn't need help. And seriously.
Oh, so you're talking about typical government work.
Absolutely. His name was Bob Moore, and he didn't need a helper, and I was the helper. So I was reading books on urban renewal, clearly didn't want to pursue that. And one day I heard in the next room a program like your podcast, but it was shorter. It was a little 5-minute show by Earl Nightingale, the dean of personal motivation. And he was on 900 stations at the time. And he said, if you will spend 1 extra hour every day studying your chosen field, in 5 years or less, you'll be a national expert in that field. And I started doing the math, you know, an hour a day extra, 5 days a week, 50 weeks a year, 5 years, that's 1,250 hours. Well, on any subject, that would make you a leading authority.
Even today.
So, yeah.
Even today. Yeah. Absolutely.
So I'm thinking, what do I want to be an expert on? It's not urban renewal, so what is it? And I kept thinking, I don't know. A couple of weeks later, it hit me. I want to do what that guy on the radio is doing. And now I had no idea what that meant, Dob. I was, I was sitting there unaware of how the world worked, but that felt right. And I said, I want to help people grow. Two problems. I hadn't grown personally, and I'd never given a speech, nor did I have anything to say. So starting a speaking career is not on the list of doables, right?
Let me talk to you about what it's like to be the assistant to a guy who doesn't need an assistant.
Yeah. So I took Nightingale at his word, and I became fanatical about studying personal development. And when I say fanatical, I'm talking textbook fanatical. 2 hours a day, 5 hours a day on weekends. That's all I wanted to talk about, think about, be around, or hear. My circle of friends changed rapidly because those who weren't fanatical about personal development or achievement drifted away because I was too intense for them. And those that were into it were attracted to me. So I had a new circle of friends that were eager to grow, and that sped my own development along. And my wife, thank God, agreed to allow my fanaticism. And so every time we got in the car, I was playing a cassette tape back in those days and listening to somebody. Every spare moment I was reading a book or listening to a recording. There weren't, there wasn't a self-help section in the bookstores, and there weren't public seminars. But I found one seminar that was a circuit kind of a thing going around the country. And I went to that and set some goals and learned how. And within 2 years, I was doing training programs, leading other people's courses. And I had gotten promotions at work because they could see that I knew what I was doing now. And they made me an assistant to the board of directors. And then a guy came and he said, Jim, I'd like you to go to work with me selling Earl Nightingale's motivational materials. I said, I don't know.
The guy you just listened to who on the radio for that 5-minute section, who'd inspired you, not even really knowing, but what he said about studying. So you studied, and then not even knowing what it is you want to study, and then going, I want to be him. And now there's this opportunity to sell that guy's material.
Yeah.
That must have been.
I said, it's exciting. His name was Harold Gash. And I said, Harold, I'm not good at sales. He said, Jim, I've seen you. You're very good at sales. You just don't go about it in the right way. My old way was, memorize a sales talk, make cold calls, all that sort of thing.
Sure.
And he said, no, that's not what you do. You go around and you share this message with businesses and show them the impact it had in your life and show them how it can have that impact for them. So I did that. And what do you know? I was successful. And then I got hired to go to Tulsa, Oklahoma to be the director of leadership training for the 350,000 members of the U.S. Junior Chamber of Commerce, the JCs.
Wow.
And that put me on a national stage, writing training manuals, flying around the country, speaking at conventions. After 2 years of that, I went into business for myself.
So let me just stop you there for a minute, Jim.
Okay.
Here's the guy who could barely get into college.
Yeah.
Scraping your way through. Now you're leading seminars and writing manuals. And I don't want to jump over this because I think it's an important thing for people to get. You've got a very illustrious career and it's easy to jump to the end, but I want to sort of back up a little bit because I think that people look at life glamorously. And what I mean by that, not their own, but other people's lives.
Yeah.
People look at my life and your life and they go, oh, I want to be you. And I'm like, there's a lot of baggage that had to be disposed of. And there was a lot of crap that had to be dealt with and a lot of broken glass that had to be crawled over to get to here. And I'm not even there because I don't know where there is. So, when you talk about, being this struggling student and doing crappy jobs, and it's very easy for people to go, oh, well, I need to study an hour a day, and then I'm going to be on national stages and writing manuals. But that's not the case, right? So help us to understand that. I want people to get those speed bumps.
Well, so many people say they're not even that self-aware of. They say, if I could just get on the radio like you are, then I could be successful. And they're assuming they've got something to offer.
Yeah,
Well,
like you
I'm
said,
sure ultimately they
I wanna be
do.
a speaker, but I got nothing to say.
Right, right. Ultimately you may be able to change the world, but if you hadn't paid your dues yet, you're not bringing any value to the table. So
Right.
I went to work doing all these things over that 5-year period. And I'd set a goal in that seminar, that one seminar that I went to called Adventures and Attitudes. And this was August 1974. I, I wrote the goal: in 5 years, I will be a national expert in the field of personal development.
Wow.
Okay. Had no idea what that meant or how I was going to materialize that, but that's what seemed to be in my heart.
So
I
what year
wrote it
was
down.
that, approximately?
Pardon?
What year?
That was 74.
So 74. Now, I said,
2
I've been
years
doing,
after hearing the radio broadcast.
right. So 2 years after in the radio broadcast, I have been speaking 34 years. I started my journey more than 40 years ago.
Mhm.
The term personal development was at best, a vague term.
Right.
At best. I mean, as you said, there was certainly no sections in the bookstore. You were looking to
Yeah.
find 3 or 4 books, and they were under psychology. So
Right. And you didn't even have a business section in
there was no
books.
business section. So how did you, I mean, even that for me is like, it's somewhat visionary that you even created the idea of, I'm going to be, national expert on personal development. How did you even get to that, Jim? Because that's a mind jump for people.
Yes, it is. I had heard Earl Nightingale so many times on the recordings by that time, in those 2 years from 72 to 74, that I was just immersed in that mindset. And so personal growth was my big thing. And
Right.
and it's still my favorite way to say it is personal growth as opposed to personal development,
Sure.
because growth implies that the seed is in you, that you're capable of expanding and reaching more and achieving more and being bigger and having an impact. And it's also organic, and it means that you as an organism are giving back, like a tree bears fruit.
Right.
And so I've chosen the acorn as my logo, my personal and corporate logo, because it's a universal icon of potential.
Yeah.
Okay. So I went to work on that goal just by becoming a fanatic about it and leading seminars or group discussions or anything that I could to further the cause. And that's how I got the job opportunity with the JCs, because I'd been active with their local chapters. And so there I was on the national staff, flying around the country and giving speeches and writing training manuals and collaborating with big deal people that were way beyond me. They were the experts, and I would go to them as a representative of the organization and get their wisdom. So after 2 years of that, I had the opportunity to go to work as an advisor to a new sales manager for Massachusetts Mutual, in the life insurance company in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He said, I want you to move in with us in our new penthouse office suite. I'll give you a corner office. I want you to be my personal confidant, and I want you to conduct the training programs we have for our agents. So I started doing that, but I said, his name was Joe Willard. I said, Joe, I don't want a career in life insurance. He said, I know. He said, but you've got an office somewhere, and you might as well office with us. And I said, well, okay, to zero overhead. And I said, also, the JCs are paying me pretty well. He said, really, how much? And I said, $1,500 every month. He said, I think we can cover that. So that was my retainer. I started getting more bookings for the Bankers Association, for another insurance agency here and there around the country. I ended up, first year doing the work with that agency, I did 18 speaking engagements outside the agency. Second year, I did 28. Third year, I did 32. Fourth year, I did 68, then 89, then 109, 123, all in 1 year. And moved to California, formed a partnership with a college professor, Dr. Tony Alessandra, and he came into my
Tony's a friend of
business.
mine. That's interesting.
Oh, well, good. Tony's the executor of my will.
Okay.
So, we're that close. And I just spoke with him this morning. And so that's how it all just sort of, blossomed and then exploded.
That's amazing. So like, you know, obviously this has been a long journey. It's not,
Yeah.
you know, not only time, but as I said, there's a lot of broken glass to be crawled over that people
And
don't.
hundreds of thousands of poorly spent and lost money in bad deals.
Right. And that's, you know, again, that's one of the things that I think is so important. But, you know, in that process, you know, especially for those of us like you and I who are, I was going to say dedicated, but it's such a,
We'll just say we're in the business.
it's a limp word.
Yeah.
It's a limp word for what it is when I talk about personal development.
Committed.
Yeah. So it's like, in that though, personal growth, personal development, whatever term one wants to use, is not about, it's not a straight line. And very often, even those of us who are dedicated to being aware of these things, we discover, I'm kind of on the wrong path here. I'm kind of going down the wrong direction. Even though I'm dedicated or committed to personal growth, I'm off. What was the turning point? Can you tell us a turning point in yours? Because I think that people are not committed most of the time. They're not really showing commitment. But oftentimes when people mix up committed with hard-headed.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for all of us to recognize that I know I've been hard-headed. And when I've been hard-headed, I've gotten my head cracked open and I've had to change direction. What was your turning point? Did you have one of those or several of those? Or
probably several of those would be the more accurate answer. Right. But I remember one time I was given a speech to the American Heart Association. And there was a young girl in the audience who was an Olympic athlete, which I considered she was up here, even though 20 years younger than me. And I was down here. Mm-hmm. But she said, Mr. Cathcart, you know, you're so much more successful than us. She said, what was the hardest thing in becoming successful? And I'd never thought about it. And I said, well, believing it was possible. And she said, really? I said, yeah. She said, so were you tempted to quit? I said, no, never. And that, I think, Dov, was a unique factor worth noting, because it never once occurred to me in 40 years of professional speaking to not do professional speaking as my primary living. Mm-hmm. It never occurred to me to try another field, to quit this one. Now, there were many times that I was either failing or struggling way too hard, or incurred a lot of debt, or lost a lot of money, or went with the wrong person, had my heart broken by a business betrayal, things like that. You know, all those things were along the path. So I've got the scars and I've got the broken bones that have healed. But it never occurred to me not to do it.
Right.
You know, someone said, how did you know you would succeed? Because I knew I'd never stop. And that I think is a big deal.
I think it is too. I think it's a very big deal. But it's very interesting that it didn't cross your mind.
Mm-mm. I mean, and maybe that was because of all those hours listening to Nightingale and sort of reorienting my entire mindset and worldview to a more abundance mindset and a mindset focused on possibilities instead of limitations.
Yeah. It's fascinating. So
hundreds of hours listening to those recordings, driving around the state of Arkansas at night, going to some remote little village or town to lead a group discussion on leadership and goal setting for the JCs for zero pay and zero gas reimbursement with a $500 a month day job.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
One of your latest book, can you hold it up for us again?
Sure. The Self Motivation Handbook.
Those are watching in the Self Motivation Handbook. Now, self-motivation, I want to just talk in on that for a minute, because I think that, first of all, I think that motivation is a very poorly understood word. But in the context of this, what do you see as self-motivation? Like, what is it? Because I think that, is it this inherent belief in yourself, which you're talking about, about yourself and never wanting to quit or never considering to quit? what is it? Do you see it as something? Can you give us your framework on what self-motivation is?
Yeah, it's getting yourself to do what needs to be done when you don't feel like it. But the key to it is the word you were saying is misunderstood, and that is motivation.
Right.
Think of that as two words, motive and action.
Right.
So motive without action is just a dream or a fantasy. Action without a motive is just frenetic behavior, just random behavior.
Because that's powerful. I want you to break that down again, say it again, because I want people to really get that, because that's a vital piece right there.
Absolutely. A motive without action is simply a fantasy. It's a dream. It's a wish.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, sure, that's good for you. I wish I could have that too. I want that too. That's like people talk about the will to win. Well, heck, everybody's got the desire to win, but very few people have the will to win, because that means the will to prepare, to endure, to persist, to resist, to do all the other things that come under that. So motivation is taking action on the motives, and motivating others is finding out what they want or care about and stimulating their action on that motive. So if they don't have a motive, you can't stimulate it. An example would be, someone said to me one time, if I put a gun to someone's head, that motivates them to give me their money. And I said, no, not if they don't care if they live or die. Their desire to stay alive is what motivates them. It's not the gun.
No, the gun.
The gun just happens to be an impediment. Mm-hmm. And well, yeah, technically. No, that's not just technically, that's the reality. Without the desire to stay alive, the gun is not a motivator.
It might be actually, if the person doesn't have the desire to stay alive, it might be a motivator in the other direction.
Exactly. So, yeah, I was going to do that myself. Go ahead. Right?
Yes.
So, yeah.
Thanks for saving me a bullet.
Yeah. So what you do is you find the motives. In other words, you answer the question, what do you care about? What do you want? The whole universe asks you and me every day, what do you want?
Right.
You go out into traffic and the other cars look at you like, all right, what do you want? Do you want to pull in? Do you want to turn right? What do you want? Because then they can adjust their behavior to not have a problem with you, or to assist you if they're trying. And when you go into a Starbucks or someplace like that, they look up at you and they ask the obvious question, what do you want?
Right.
And if you don't know what you want, everybody in the place gets annoyed at you, because you're standing there, well, I don't know, tell me about things. No. Next. So every situation you find yourself in, if you can find an appropriate, keyword, appropriate way to express what you want, more often than not, you'll get it. Mm-hmm. Like a family gathering. Someone in the family says, hey, where are we going for dinner? Meaning throwing it open to everybody.
Right.
And you decide that the nice, quoted, nice thing to do is not say anything until everybody else has spoken up. Well, I don't take that approach, because when you do that, you're going wherever they want to go.
Sure. So
why not say, I'm in the mood for barbecue. How about you guys? And then throw it back to them. Now you've expressed what you want, but you haven't dominated the conversation. And they think about barbecue, and about 3 more of them say, yeah, that sounds great. And you end up eating a barbecue, right? So expressing what you want is the way the world works, for heaven's sakes. And the more clear you are on it, the more likely you are to achieve it. Then it's a matter of structuring your behavior, your relationships, your priorities, your whatever, resources, so that taking action on what you want becomes easier, simpler, more obvious, harder to deny, and more possible. So there you go.
So, in the simplest possible terms, find out what your real motive is. Yeah. Then what is the appropriate action? If you don't have the motive and you've got action, you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off. Yeah. If you've got the motive but no action, then you're living in a fantasy. Yeah. And nothing's ever going to happen. So. And
that's why it's so important to write down your goals and dreams, to have a bucket list. To just know what you would like as a result, an effect, an experience. What do you want to be, do, have, and put it in writing. Because if it's not in writing, you don't care enough about it. and it's not going to happen. But if it's in writing, you've got something to refer back to. And I always date what I'm writing,
Right.
so that I know when I wrote it down. And if I look at it again and I make some edits to it, I change the date.
Right.
So I can see the progression of that goals list over time. And I really do carry these with me. And I've got examples right here, on my desktop of goals and dreams and things like that I've written over the years and carried with me and refined. And
Right.
you know what? They come true. Who knew?
Who knew? But that's something very interesting in that, because I would I think that you're saying that about people, but one of the things that I've noticed about people is if you ask people what they want, 99.9% of people would answer with
Yeah.
There's that.
They'll start with and then they follow that with
exactly.
in other words, no words,
Right.
just
So there's,
space.
as opposed to, what do you want? I want to speak in China on stage with Jim Cathcart.
There you go.
I want that. That's
There you
what
go.
Dr. Barron wants. I want that. I have respect for the man. I have respect for what he's done. And I want to be in China, and I know that that's the emerging market, and I want to be there. That's clear.
Yeah.
So however, when you ask most people, except that they and they are. And what I've found by that is that there are people who are reasonably successful because they are actionable. They do things.
Yeah.
But very often it's not by their choice. And this is what I know because
By default, because of their circumstances.
I work with these people, and I find that some of them are extraordinarily successful. They've done very well. They bought a big house. They got the nice car. They got all those kinds of things. And they're going, is this my life, really? I mean, I'm not sure. I don't even know. And people will say, I don't know how I arrived here. And the answer is, you didn't choose anything else.
That's right.
So what I'm trying to say to people is, it's possible for you to appear, underline, in bold, italics, and quotation marks. It is possible for you to appear successful without ever making a choice if you have a good work ethic.
Yeah.
However, for you to actually be fulfilled and genuinely successful will require that you make a freaking choice. And live with the consequences of that choice, which may include some broken glass walking, which may include some really bad slaps, and as you said, Jim, some scars and some wounds.
Yeah.
But that's the path. That's where I'm going.
Yeah. I don't think we can overemphasize this. The people who have long, abundant lives and are happy inside their soul, those people are clear on what they care about, what they value, and what they believe. If you don't know what you believe, spend some time studying what you think you believe. For example, one time I was asked to give a sermon at a church. I'm not a particularly religious person, but this friend of mine was a pastor, and he's in a Protestant non-denominational church. He said, I got to be in Boston over the weekend. Would you give my sermon? I said, no. He said, come on, I need you. And I said, okay, I'll do it, but I don't know what to talk about. He said, well, you talk about personal growth, talk about spiritual growth. And I thought, well, there's a challenge. So I sat down and I thought about it and prayed about it and wrote about it. And I came up with a structure for that one little sermon. This was in the 1970s, and I still remember it vividly today. My message was your spiritual growth. That was the title. And I said, item 1, know what you believe. So figure out what it is you think you believe and write it down, and then compare it. Number 2, explore what you believe. In other words, find out if that holds up to criticism, or if when you put it out in the light, it withers and fades away. So compare your belief system, or your religion, if you will, to other belief systems and see how they compare. And if yours doesn't hold up as well as theirs do, change horses, right? Take the one that works for you. Figure out what you genuinely believe in your heart of hearts, okay? Number 2, explore what you believe. Number 3, live what you believe. Because if it's not affecting your actions, you don't really believe it. You're just saying it because it makes mom and dad proud.
Right.
Right? So live your beliefs, and that's got to require at first know your beliefs, all right?
Right.
And that's got to require self-awareness and self-exploration, and then know what you care about. See, my mantra goes with a biblical passage, John 10:10. In the biblical passage, it's quoting Jesus, and he's saying, I've come that they would have life and have it more abundantly. Well, my life mantra is I want people to have life and have it more abundantly. I want to help people live abundantly. What does that mean? It means that they express all their talents, they give all their gifts, they make an impact in a positive way on the world around them, and they leave the world a better place. And as a result of it, they have joy in their heart of hearts, and their relationships are good, and their health is probably better, and they'll live longer than they would have otherwise. There you go.
Yeah, it again, very powerful and significantly. I mean, we've got to have people really get this.
Yes.
Have to have people really get this. That, and I'm particularly the reason I'm slow in coming back here is because I'm thinking about something that you were saying that I actually used to teach a 5-hour training on, and that was beliefs and actually questioning beliefs. Because my question to people would say, tell me something you believe, and they would say something. I say, okay, now tell me why you believe it. Simple question. Tell me why. Exactly.
Not a sound.
Well, you know, do you believe in God? Yes. Why? I'm not saying you're wrong. Just tell me why.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
What does that mean? Yeah.
Well, then they'll say stuff like, well, you know, I read the Bible. Okay, great. Well, I read Aladdin, but I don't believe in genies.
Right.
You know, so what? You know, and it's not making it wrong, but the willingness to challenge it. And I had a guy, I'll tell you a great story about this. I had a guy in one of my trainings, and he was a Catholic, right? Very devout Catholic. Mm-hmm. And I said, Franco, his name was, and I said, Franco, why are you Catholic? And he said, because I am. And I said, because you fell out of a Catholic vagina? Does that make you Catholic? I don't know that it does. I said, if I park a Ford in a Ferrari garage, it doesn't change to be a Ferrari. So tell me why. And he's like, you know, and he was a devout.
Yeah.
And I pushed him and pushed him and pushed him. And I said, if you can't answer that question for you, then you've simply adopted it. Most people's beliefs are not theirs. They're simply adopted or indoctrinated, one or the other.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I didn't see him. I know
and
I am really.
The only difference in indoctrinated and adopted is who did the doing.
Exactly.
Indoctrinated, it was forced from the outside, and adopted, it was accepted from the inside.
Exactly.
But either way, it's not yours.
It's not yours.
You make it yours.
Right. And so, he left, and he was mad, right? I could see that he was mad.
Yeah, because you unsettled something that he wasn't used to looking at.
Absolutely. Something that he would have said, this is who I am. And which is a powerful statement anytime we say an I am statement. But I bumped into him like 3 months later. And he says, oh, Dov, I mean, literally bumped into him. And he goes, Dov, I'm so glad to see you. I said, oh, really? I said, I'm surprised. I think last time I left you with your feathers ruffled. He goes, oh, I hated you. He goes, he says, I went beyond anger. I was hated on you for at least a month. He goes, but I really want to thank you. And I said, why is that? He goes, because you made me think. And I said, oh, well, that's kind of my job. And he said, yeah. And he goes, but I want to thank you because of my faith. And I said, yeah, well, I challenged your faith, right? And he goes, yes, but you know what? And I said, what? He said, I'm a Catholic. And I said, why? He said, because it's my religion. Like he had done the work.
He could explain
exactly. And before it was what he'd gotten from his mom and his dad and his family and his culture. And now he had chosen it for his own reasons. And it was no longer adopted or indoctrinated. And I was like so happy for him because his faith was his own now. And I said, and it wouldn't have mattered to me if you were a Sikh or a Muslim or a Jew. It's irrelevant.
Or a Republican or a Democrat or whatever.
No, I don't care. Right?
They're all belief systems.
Yeah. They're all belief systems. But that moment of questioning is so rare. And for me, and I can hear it in you too, is the depth of personal growth is that the willingness to question what it is I believe. Because if I can't stand up to that questioning from me, I'm just arguing for something.
Right. And this is also, that's a life principle. That's not just a
Absolutely.
philosophical thing or a religious thing or whatever. And I think of philosophical as the belief level, and religion as the practice level. So religion's really not particularly important, but belief is tremendously important. And if the belief is solid enough, it'll show up in your actions, and you can see your religion by watching your life. But the same life principle is there when you look at going from childhood to adulthood. As long as you are simply mimicking what mom and dad and society told you to do, you are not yet an adult, even though your body may be grown.
Exactly.
Right? Only when you go through the questioning, the challenging, the re-embracing of certain points of view, beliefs, and life patterns, only at that point do you own your own life. Up until then, you're a renter using somebody else's apartment.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. And and as you said, I think that the big realization for people is it's not positive or negative. It just is. Meaning, if you believe you're crap at something and you believe it wholeheartedly, then you will be crap at something.
Yeah.
Like you believed you were bad at sales until this gentleman said, no, you are terrible at sales scripts.
Yeah.
But you're great at sales relationship. I have the same thing. I will say to this day, I can train you in sales and I'm masterful, but I'm horrible at sales. And then I go, pause, that have a script. But I'm masterful at relationship sales because I care about people and I actually want to find out what you need and can I provide it. That's it.
Yeah.
That's
If
it.
selling is peddling, if selling is forcing a product on someone until you get their money from them, then selling is all about your needs and wants and about manipulating other people. It devalues others. If selling is a way of helping other people and earning a profit for doing so, then you can make millions and tens of millions by making the world a better place, and you sleep better at night. It's just a better thing all the way around. I want to go back to an earlier point we were talking about, and that's the importance of goal setting.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing what you believe, knowing what you want, and then writing down what you want.
Right.
So I'd written down everything I wanted, and I'd listened to Earl Nightingale's recordings and had the inspiration from all that. And then I'd sold his recordings. So I heard him in 72, started selling his materials in 74, did that for 2 years, and then went out on my own. And in 1977, I had my own company. I was teaching my own courses, no longer teaching other people's courses. In 84, I had moved to California a couple of years before. I'd formed the partnership with Dr. Alessandra, and we were sitting in our office down in La Jolla Shores near the beach in San Diego. And the phone rang. I picked it up, and this man said, "May I speak to Jim Cathcart?" I said, "This is he." He said, "This is Earl Nightingale."
What?
I was frozen in fear.
In fear? Really?
Yeah, I was overwhelmed. This is my up in the clouds guru hero.
Sure.
And he called me and said my name. I mean, I was speechless. And I said, which means this is he, how may I help you, sir? And,
roughly translated, of course.
yeah. And he said, "Mr. Cathcart, I just read an article of yours in the Nonprofit World Report," which was a magazine I had sent a free article to the month before, and they published it. He said, "It's about personality types, and it's by you and a Dr. Tony Alessandra." He said, "I think that would make a good audio program." And I said, "Well, sir, that is an audio program. We have it. It's a 4-cassette program, and we've been selling it for a little while now." He said, "Well, my company publishes audio programs." I said, "Oh, believe me, I know." And he said, "So if you will send me your..."
We might have worked that out.
Yeah, we might want to publish it. So I sent it to him that same day. And he called back and he said, "I like it. If you'll re-record it into 6 messages, because we use 6 audio packs, and do it to our standards, we will publish it." So Nightingale Conant took our relationship strategies for dealing with the differences in people audio album, which, by the way, was the first audio album ever widely published on the subject of personality types, ever.
Wow.
Ever. Think about that for a minute.
Yeah.
Because everybody and their brothers,
Every
their
man and his
sisters got
dog's
one
got
today.
a personality test now.
Yeah. But there were only training programs and books back then on the subject. Nobody had ever done an audio. So
Right.
Tony and I did, and Nightingale Conant published it in 1984. And in 84 and 85, they sold $3.5 million worth of it worldwide. So pause for a second and reflect. 1972, I heard Earl on the radio. I was a government clerk, going nowhere. 1974, I was selling his audio materials. I was starting to grow. 1984, he was selling mine.
That is so awesome.
What are the
That is
odds
so
of that
sweet.
ever occurring?
That
And
is
I still
so
didn't
sweet.
have a college degree. And I still didn't have powerful connections in the community. And I still wasn't an athlete, although I'd lost 52 pounds of fat and become a jogger. You know, so my life had truly transformed.
I just love that is the sweetness right there. That suddenly Earl's calling you to sell your material.
Yeah.
And this is the guy that you know, as you said, you know, you probably burned through the tapes. I remember winding those tapes with a pencil because I played them so much.
Same
Right?
here. And
So
running out of batteries every third day. You know,
Exactly.
a little portable player.
Yeah.
Well, this gets even better. In 1989, or at least more profound, in 1989, I was the president of the National Speakers Association, which is 5,000 professional speakers around the country and around the world. And I called Mr. Nightingale and I said, sir, would you do me the honor of joining me on stage at our speakers convention, which will be in Dallas this year, 89. We'll have about 2,000 professional speakers there. And these are our people, you know, they do what you and I do. And I would like to interview you about the evolution of the field of personal growth. And he said, I might do that. It was non-paid engagement. He said, I might do that if I can make it happen. And I said, okay. And then in May of that year, his wife, Diana, called me and she said, Jim, Earl passed away. She said, we're not going to have a funeral because we cremated him and spread his ashes here at home in a private ceremony. But I would like to have a memorial for him at your speakers convention. I said, absolutely. We'd be honored.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, I have, you know, a family album. I want to show some photos to tell his life story. And I want to share my knowledge of the man from backstage as his spouse. She said, I'd like you to speak. And I said, no. She said, why not? I said, well, I'm not worthy because this is Earl Nightingale, for God's sakes. You know, I mean, this is an icon of personal achievement. And it should be heads of state and captains of industry speaking at his memorial. She said, well, you don't understand, Jim. That's not what he was about. She said, you lived his message and transformed your life. You're a product of what he was teaching. I want you to speak at his memorial service. So at Earl Nightingale's memorial service, with his son, among others of hundreds of speakers and authors that we would all know, were in the audience. I was standing on stage as the only outside speaker besides Earl's widow at his memorial service.
Wow.
Probably the greatest honor of my entire life.
I'm sure. Wow.
Yeah.
That is, what an amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing that, Jim. That
You
is,
bet.
what an arc, you know,
Yeah.
from the beginning to the very end.
I hope that our listeners are getting this on a personal level instead of a remote level, thinking, oh, well, good for Jim. They need to understand, I didn't have a college degree. I didn't have academic excellence. I wasn't an athlete. I wasn't well connected. I didn't have any money. There wasn't a rich uncle that would loan me money. I did all this by hand by following Earl Nightingale's suggestion of an extra hour of effort every day after my normal workday in one field for 5 consecutive years. And that took me up the hill. And I kept going and kept going. And when I had difficulties, I didn't think, well, what else could I do instead? I thought, okay, how can I get around this?
Right.
And I knew it would hurt for a while. It's like when I quit smoking. People said, you're trying to quit. I said, no, I'll never smoke as long as I live.
Right.
How can you know that? Because I'll never smoke as long as I live.
Right.
Well, what if it's really hard to quit? Then it'll be really hard to quit. But I'll never smoke as long as I live. And that was January 25th, 1974. And I've never smoked as long as I've lived.
Decision from the Latin, decide, to cut away from. Once you cut away, it is no way to bring it back. And that's what most people don't understand. They cut halfway and go, well, we'll see what the options are.
Yeah,
no,
that hurt too much. I'm going back. Right.
Exactly. It's just not an option. It's burn the ships. That's what it is. So
it's like when I decided to lose weight. I'd always been fat or overweight anyway. And I was 50 pounds overweight and smoking 2 packs a day. And I said, okay, picture of health. Never
health, but
ever. And so I said, I'm not going to quit smoking. I'm going to become a non-smoker. There's a difference. One is a smoker who doesn't smoke right now. The other one never smokes again. And I said, I'm not going to lose weight, which I had done many times. I'm going to become a slender person. And today I'm 71 years old, 150 pounds. Back then it was 200 pounds. I run mountain trails 3 days a week. I do 100 push-ups every day without missing a day in 3 years now. And even though I've had health challenges, which are all typical of a human, I've had operations and things like that. Still, at 71, I'm more vital than many people in their 30s. As a matter of fact, on a recent lecture tour of China, I was standing in front of 2,500 people, beginning my speech to this group. And the host of the meeting comes out, the Chinese version of Tony Robbins, who had hired me. And he says to them in Chinese, Jim is an athlete. And they all go, yay! And he says, and Jim does 100 push-ups a day, yay! And he says, we're going to have a push-up contest with Jim right now. My translator says that in my ear. And I said, what? I'm in a suit. I'm on stage in front of 2,500 people about to give a 6-hour seminar. And he wants to have a push-up contest. So I decided, what the heck? And I take my jacket off and throw it, acting as cocky as I could. And the audience went nuts.
I'm sure.
4 guys ranging in age from 25 to 34 came up there and stood beside me. And they said, all right, it's going to be a 30-second contest. We're going to drop and start doing push-ups. And the one who does the most wins. So I said, okay, bring it on. And I dropped and started pumping them out. And at the end, I had done 50 push-ups. And the closest competitor among those 20-somethings did 27 push-ups.
Nice.
And they were doing these camel push-ups,
The worm push-ups.
Yeah.
Oh, these ones, what I call the 3-inch push-ups.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't count,
where
buddy.
Just your head goes down.
Yeah. Sorry, buddy. So I actually went in a contest for that. I was on holiday because I'm 60 and I was on holiday and we were on holiday in a hot place and I've got a t-shirt on. Normally I'm all covered up.
Yeah.
And so you can't normally see that I have a build. But you could. And so they were making fun of me from the stage, and then they wanted me to get on stage and I was like, no. So they pushed me on stage. I get on stage and I have to do a contest, and it's a push-up contest. And they start the contest. I go, well, stop. I'm getting up. And they go, what? I go, I'm not doing this. And they go, why? And I said, because it ain't a push-up. If I can set the rules of what a push-up is, I'll compete. And they go, okay. So I show them. Oh, yeah. Right. So, and again, you got 30 seconds. All the way down, all the way up, not your head, not your ass, but you were actually going to do this thing, right? Same thing. Killed the guy who's 30, half my age. I'm like, yeah, dream on, buddy. Right?
That's right.
But it's a great example. And I know we're coming to the end of the show, and I've got so much more you and I can talk for a couple of weeks here. We'd have a great time. But one of the things I want to do is, like, what is wrong with you, man? You're writing songs and singing and riding motorcycles.
Yeah.
Can you just act your age?
I had a high school friend comment on a Facebook post the other day. I had a new press photo made, portrait, And I posted it on Facebook and I said, what do you think? And this guy, he was a classmate. He's exactly my age.
Oh, yeah?
He said, dude, you got to start aging. He said, I've looked at me in the mirror and I've looked at you in these photos and you've got to start aging.
Yeah, because it's really upsetting me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's mindset. You know, that's a reflection of what you and I have been talking about for almost an hour, is the mindset, that knowing what you believe, writing down your goals, being clear on what is a priority to you, structuring your life so you're doing more of what you care about and less of what doesn't matter to you at all. And you're not suffering fools, you know, to waste your time, but you're being courteous and appropriate to people, showing them dignity. That mindset leads to good health, good relationships, greater income, and the world's a better place because you were in it.
Yeah. 2 final questions. First one, totally aligned with what we were just talking about. What's your guilty pleasure?
Guilty pleasure, well, it's got to be a combination of things, but it's playing guitar while eating dark chocolate snacks and having a great red wine.
Nice one.
Yeah.
And as we finish, Jim, I would love for you to tell our viewers, our listeners, something they can do, some practical thing they can do within the next, preferably 24 hours, but certainly the next few working days, something practical they can leave here with and go do it so that they can integrate this fabulous conversation.
Thank you. Write down today's date on a sheet of paper and spend some time just writing down what you would like to be, do, or have in the rest of your days, you know, your bucket list. Don't worry about whether you can do it. That's not important because that's to be worked out after it's written down. The weak goal setters only write the goals they know they can achieve. And if you know you can achieve it, it's not a goal, it's a to-do.
Exactly.
You know, it's only a goal if it's something you care about that you haven't yet figured out the plan or identified the path or even determined if it's possible.
Right.
We'll place a man on the moon and return him safely to Earth. That was unrealistic and outrageous.
Totally.
And we did it. You know, so who knows what's possible? Write it down. Go to my website, Cathcart.com, and there's 730 pages of free resources. Watch the videos, read the articles, download the checklists. You know, the tools are there and they're free. Use them. Fabulous.
And is that how people can best tap into your resources, all the wonderful things that you have to offer, Cathcart.com?
Yeah, I've got TEDx video that's posted on my home page. I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, you know, all of them. Usually just as my name, Jim Cathcart, Cathcart. And so I'm easy to find. Please connect with me and let's stay connected.
Fabulous. Well, Jim, I want to thank you, sir. It's been a pleasure and an honor. It's an absolute joy being here, mate. Hope you'll stay with us to the end as we say goodbye to everybody else. Listen, I say this to you every single time, listeners, viewers. Do not just listen to this. Do something with it. Information is worth the hole in the donut. Transformation is the application of information. Put it in action, please. Do that. And remember, you can go and chat about this show and all of our previous show, chat with our guests, chat with other listeners. Go to our Facebook group page, Dov Barron's Leadership and Loyalty Podcast. Go there, chat about the show. It was an absolute joy. You got so much to take away from this. And remember, the research consistently shows that one of the biggest challenges facing even the most successful companies is somewhat counterintuitive, in that these fast-growing companies often hit a point where they realize that they're spending a fortune attracting, training, and developing their talent, only to have them leave at an alarming rate. If you're sick of training and developing your talent, only to have them leave you before you get your ROI, then come talk to us at fullmontyleadership.com, where we provide the essential leadership skills to rekindle and amplify the hidden loyalty assets inside of your organization by tapping into purpose. fullmontyleadership.com, providing you with the concrete soft skills to get you and your organization to the top and keep you there. Why? Because you can't outsource authenticity. And remember to stop by the Matrix, so matrix.fullmontyleadership.com. You don't need a triple W, just matrix like the movie, .fullmontyleadership.com, and get your Authentic Leadership Matrix self-assessment tool. It's valued at $197. It's absolutely free for you being a regular listener to our show. And remember, you can catch us on Alexa and Google Home by simply saying, play Dov Barron's podcast. So thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. Till next time, stay curious, my friend. Stay curious about the goals you've not yet achieved, about the growth that's waiting to happen inside of you, and about the beliefs you're holding that may not, in fact, be yours. Till next time, this is Dov Barron. I'm here to assist you tapping into your deep greatness to reach the next level of clarity, focus, purpose, and profit in your business, your life, and your leadership impact. And I am out.